Back here on the Drive, FanRun Radio, Russell and Bear back with you. Houston Crash, Tucker Harlan along for the ride this afternoon. And pleased to be joined by the head coach of your national champion Tennessee baseball Volunteers, Tony Vitello, joining us on the program. Good afternoon, Coach. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Finally getting caught up or getting a chance to check out some of these high school guys. Portal madness, the draft, all those things are not completely over, but slowed down, and so focusing on the young fellas.
Yeah, I mean, what's it like out there? I remember, Coach, sitting with you in your office after the 2021 World Series and asking you, what changed after that in recruiting? Are there some doors that are open now that weren't before? And you were like, yeah, but it's still, you're swimming in deeper waters. What about now? Now that you've won it all and you're at the top, I mean, I would hope that there are no doors that are closed anymore.
Well, I think with social media, the fan base, the stadium renovations, now we've had some consistency. Winning is a big part of it, but even bigger are all those things. I would say all doors are relatively open, but the flip side of that is, it's my buddies and even some of my old team people that know baseball, fans. The common joke is, I bet it's real easy to recruit now or everybody's dying to play with you guys. And it's just not how it works. So some people are more entertained by the fact just getting to know our program. But it never goes anywhere after that. And then kids are kids, parents are parents. They want to hear how great they are and they'll be in a safe space and they're going to start and all this stuff. And, first of all, that's not always going to be the case anywhere, but for us in particular, we just try and be as upfront and honest as possible, and we do not ever want to revisit our first year here where it was relatively easy to wear the uniform, to travel with the team, to play. We want it to be very competitive and very challenging and something our guys take pride in.
Well, looking at the kind of roster you're assembling for next year. And by the way, first of all, congratulations on winning the national championship
yes.
a couple of weeks ago. Like we were talking about next year's team. Let's just take a minute to realize that you did climb the mountain. You're at the top of the ball game right now. I think I told you, go ahead and hang on the rim for a minute, Coach.
No, I appreciate it, and we're just going to have to go for a follow-up dunk at some point because it's a little too crazy. The parade capped it off in a beautiful way. It was so enjoyable, but then it was hit the ground running. So our day will come where we're able to kick our feet up and let it really sink in. And that feeling and that championship and those memories are not going anywhere. But also what's not going anywhere for right now is our duties, that we got to get accomplished.
Well, I saw a picture of you and Peyton on a boat last weekend, so that looked like a pretty good time. It hasn't been all work and no play, right?
No, it hasn't, although I joked with my buddy. I said, I wish everybody saw the full itinerary of what that day looked like.
30 minutes on the boat?
3-hour drive there, 3-hour drive back, probably 6 hours on the boat, and also some good time of just hanging out and eating food and catching up. So trust me, it was a great day and needed, but a lot of text messages getting caught up on that day and some travel as well. So no complaints, but again, that time will come maybe in late August or at some point where we all get to have our day in the sun with our families or friends.
What's it like hanging out on the boat with the sheriff? Is he a country guy on the radio, classic rock, yacht rock? I mean, what are we talking about here, Coach?
He's a I don't know why everybody wouldn't be yacht rock, but he is a country expert. Obviously, he's fortunate enough. He knows a lot of these folks and has personal relationships and has a story. He's so involved in community and charity work, and a lot of times that's tied into a musical act. So he's got a lot of backstories with those guys. And Ashley's a good boat driver, I can tell you that. So they're also very chill, relaxed people. So it was great to put the feet up and just take a time out from everything because it was very hectic the days leading up to that, and then right back to it the day after.
Well, I know you've got this weekend you're going to be on MLB Network coverage of the draft again. I know it's not being on the drive with Russ and Bear here on FanRun Radio, but it's still
exactly.
It's a pretty big deal, Coach.
No, it is, and it's a bigger deal than normal because SEMO will be there in person. We have other guys whose names could be called I will participate in the first 2 rounds all of Sunday night, whereas last time I went to the first round, and then I went to a sports bar with one of the other guys on the panel, and there's Tidwell, there's Beck, and it was just real frustrating because it would have been cool to talk about them. And then a lot of the other guys, SEC names were rolling through that I had information on that, it would have been nice to share. I don't know how smart I would have sounded. So doing the 2 rounds and having the group we have is going to be a personal thing for me, and it's going to be something I'm really looking forward to.
Awesome. Tony Vitello with us this afternoon on The Drive. Coach, you're obviously a college baseball guy, still young, early in your head coaching career, and now you've got your first national championship. I know, again, you're just running around recruiting like a madman, but when you do get some time to sort of reset, reorient yourself, now that ultimate goal has already been attained, how do you do that? How do you say, all right, this thing that I've been working towards for 6-7 years, I've done it. How do you, what do you do after that?
Sure. Well, I think for now, it's just whatever the next task is has kind of consumed us. But reflecting on it, the major things that stick out was the university was so hungry for a championship. It was so cool to be around my parents. Frank was really stressing me out. He wanted to win another one so bad. So I'm glad that happened. And then it has been, something you want to work towards. But I'm just glad, and I'm not discrediting anybody because I really don't think it's fair to judge people, especially in our sport with how the ball bounces, who has one and who doesn't. But it would be a tough spot to be at the end of your career and be chasing that ghost or chasing that trophy. So those are the thoughts I'm just trying to share with you, the thoughts I've had. And then kind of more direct about your question is, let's just be honest. The track record hasn't been great the last 4 years of the teams, or maybe 4 out of 5, the team that wins it, how the next year goes. And there's separate cases, and every program's different. Every year is different. But I think if you don't have an edge to you this year, you're kind of missing the boat. First of all, a lot of the guys that'll play are guys that were in the dugout when that last out was made, or watching on TV. And then the other thing is there is that extra incentive of, hey, you can't do it. Kind of like people said the number 1 seed couldn't win, or you can't win the SEC tournament and have success in the postseason after that. So there's plenty of motivation, and there's plenty of reason to have a chip on your shoulder next year.
Coach, you're looking at the high school kids this week, but it's been a big week in the portal for you guys. I know you're pretty stoked about some of the additions. Any fun stories you can share about just how all that's unfolded the past 2 weeks or so with any of the new guys?
Man, you know what? Just and it's hard to use the names because the paperwork's not done, but okay. A couple of the guys we had, it was like we weren't even working, which is great. It was, and that's kind of how it was with Billy and his dad. So a little bit of reflection on hanging out with Lyndon, former NASCAR driver, Billy, the superstar hitter. When it's not work and you don't find yourself kind of pushing to get a point across or to make sure you're being polite and everything's just kind of smooth, that's a really good feeling because, first of all, your confidence goes up that it's going to work out. But more importantly, your confidence goes up that it's going to work out with a yes and then work out during the spring. And some of those guys got some big personality and are pretty damn funny. And it's interesting. We've now been on our campus long enough that guys like Drew Gilbert are our best recruiting coordinator in a situation for one of these guys that's on board. And, other guys are doing our work for us. And I think that's the way it should be. If you take care of people, they'll take care of you. And we're certainly not perfect, but we've tried to do that.
I was watching an interview with Michael Early, the new coach at Texas A&M, and he said that he modeled his staff off of yours. He mentioned you specifically in terms of, getting a former head coach as his pitching coach, a young coordinator / hitting guy, and all that stuff. How does that feel to go from, being the young coach trying to build a winner to actually being a model for other guys trying to follow in your footsteps?
It's very surreal, but I'm laughing in my car because I came up coaching with J.K., who's their pitching coach. He was a former head coach like Frank Anderson. And J.K., everybody listening would love to have an apple juice or a beer with J.K. He's pretty entertaining. So he's a rival now because he's in the league, but he's a good dude, and I'm glad to see him get rewarded. And now I get to bust his chops and say that our staff helped him get his job back in the SEC. But there's other people, too, that like Coach Jameson, who I worked for. I don't mind saying it. He's the pitching coach at Missouri. I think a lot of people have seen the value in having somebody like Frank that is an older counsel or more experienced counsel, either as a head coach or just a coach in general, and somebody can take care of the pitching for you without you losing sleep over it. So, if anything, it's a proper homage or homage, depending on how educated you are, which is a bad joke. But, depending on, how you see Frank, I think, it's props to him for who he is yet again.
I was going to say, there's a lot. It's cool that they're trying to follow the Vitello model, but I think we all know there's only one crazy-ass Frank.
Exactly, and keep those T-shirts coming. There's been some good ones, which I've enjoyed, but, it's just interesting how the guy's competitiveness continues to help him evolve, and people that are on the outside looking in will try and take shots or say, he's old school, but he's really not. He's not old school or new school. He's present moment. How do I win? How do I get this guy to be as good as he can be, whether it be Xander or anyone else? And the proof is definitely in the pudding with that dude. And I guess the one story, I didn't give you a good story, but now that Gavin Grahovic, who I'm a big fan of, he roomed with Dean Curley with Team USA. I think Gavin truly would have had an interest in us if they wouldn't have hired Coach early, but everyone knew that's who he wanted to be hired. He was going to stay if he was. I don't know how it happened, but rumors started swirling right away that I offered that kid $1 million, which, yeah, I mean, the NIL world's changing. I'll admit to that. And we probably were the slow ponies in the league. And now that we've won, maybe that's helping. But it's funny how our sport is probably more of a sewing circle than any sport out there, just because scouts and coaches are all crowded around home plate with nothing to talk about in between innings.
Well, I would be interested to know, can you take us back to your rant after the Evansville series? And I know you said some of that stuff was brought on by some recruiting things that were happening behind the scenes that weekend, but I'm sure that went viral in the sewing circle, as you put it. What kind of response did you get from the college baseball community?
Well, the immediate one I got from Coach Elander was like, holy hell, don't scare everybody away. We got NIL over here too, and our guys are taken care of for sure. But where we try and get our guys their money is in the draft. And then also, it's interesting. I'll just say it. Some guys have a lot of kids get drafted and go off to play pro ball, but the success level once they're in pro ball isn't as good as you'd like to see it. Frank's guys in.
Oh, Coach, you cut out. You there?
Money in the long run that can serve them a long ways. But that was one kid, and I just don't like, I was guilty a lot of being phony or saying stuff I couldn't back up when I was younger, like a lot younger in high school and stuff. But I just would like to be authentic and upfront, and I don't want to be sold a bill of goods. So when you got a kid that says it's his dream school and he wants to play for you, and sometimes that happens in state too. There's a lot of Vol fans, but some people have asterisks in their back pocket that they bust out. And in that case, it was, I really like it here and I want to play here, but, how much money are you going to give me and am I going to be starting, every day and at what spot? And it's just not how we've done it. Again, we've had to adjust a little bit, but I will say this. When we start a conversation with a kid in the portal or high school, it immediately starts with baseball first. And is there a possible match there with the way you do things and the way we do things? Because our locker room is so important to us. I've seen it when it's not at its best, and I hate it. It's my least favorite thing in the world. And then this year started last August. You saw with our group, their unity and their, closeness, if you want to call it that, was the number one strength, and it really was.
Talking with Tony Vitello this afternoon on the program. Coach, one or two more things. We'll let you out of here. Let's get back to the championship for a second. In basketball, you win a title, you get to hang a banner the next year. There's always a ceremony at the beginning of the season. They pass out rings. Have there been any discussions yet of how to honor and commemorate the national championship when you're opening what hopefully will basically be a new ballpark next year as well?
Yeah, I think the new ballpark is going to be something where we got to, select carefully when we declare opening day, because it is going to be a race to the finish line for all that work to be done. And, I think if you're realistic, it's going to be somewhere during the season that everything is capped off and we can unveil the stadium. And so do you want 2 dates or do you want 1 date with that whole deal? The two things I know for sure that don't involve rings are we need eye black on our left center field wall in honor of Hunter Ensley that's permanently there as a mark. And then I love John Wilkerson's, I will give my all for Tennessee is all over our facility. But I think somewhere there needs to be, I will run through a wall for Tennessee, which again is John's coined phrase that he threw out there. So we need to do those two things. And of course we need to have a ring ceremony. That's a fun one at some point.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So maybe if everything's not ready, and people, it might be harder to draw a bunch of people there in February or whatever. Anyway, is there a possibility? Like I'm just spitballing here. You have some sort of ceremony during an SEC series, even closer to the middle of the season.
Yeah, I think that's possible. And the one thing you would like to do though is have those pro ball guys around, like Simo and Burke, and you're never going to be able to include everybody, unfortunately. But I do really like the idea of basketball is a controlled environment. You're inside. There's less variables, not just weather, but other things too. And there's a closeness there when you're indoors. So maybe something involved with that. But probably the first thing that's going to happen out of all this is those rings got to be made. So we might be at the mercy of that date as well.
All right. Well, Coach, we really appreciate it, man. You've been generous with your time as always today. Last thing for you. After all the work is done, your travel plans this summer, Tulum, Ibiza, I forget the other one you mentioned.
Cabo, I think.
Cabo? Okay. Where are we headed?
I think Cabo is going to be in the winter with the family, which will be awesome. But it's going to be hard to sneak anything else in. I really want to go to Europe. That might have to be Labor Day weekend, but we got a home football game. School starts earlier than it ever has since we've been at Tennessee this year, and then we started recruiting later than we ever have. So, and I'm doing this draft, which is work, but it's fun. I'm going to Todd Helton's ceremony, which is going to be a lot of fun. So I'm living a very charmed life, but it also might be a life where there's no big vacation this summer. We'll see.
All right. Well, you got enough fun events coming up in the future. Coach, great stuff, man. Anything else that you feel like needs to be said before we turn you loose?
No, if I was as cocky as some of these people on Twitter think I am, I would say we should do Jam or No Jam, and it should be We Are the Champions by Queen. But we'll do songs another date, I guess.
Well, who's not going to jam that?
Everybody should. Everybody should. Little Freddie Mercury energy there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll get you back on and do a turn back the clock, jam or not a jam here one of these days. Coach, really appreciate you. Congratulations again on climbing that mountain.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys, and thank you for everybody that was there every pitch of the way, even though some of them were more stressful than we all wanted. We got there.
Absolutely. Hey, there's a little Queen for you on the way out. Thanks, man.
Love it. Thank you so much.
All right, see you.